parking, or the site that has that surface parking on it. And so the applicant, and they also are, the other factor that we recognize is that they're also trying to, or are accommodating all of the loading on site, so they won't be having any loading in the streets. And to accommodate that, they need to be able to pull trucks and semi-trucks into the 3 large loading spaces that are located in this location of the building. And to accommodate that and to get that truck back out, they do need to go to 4th Street. And that particular issue of loading and curb cut width is something that we did discuss at PDR, and things are sized as small as they can to accommodate those turning radiuses of those large trucks. So for those reasons, we are recommending approval of that variance. They have, since PDR, reduced the parking spaces that were on that hard corner of the lot. This is what they're calling the backyard. This is the area that, through the neighborhood organization, would like to use for, say, the neighborhood ice cream social or other events, also just passive outdoor uses on non-event times. And this is 25 feet in depth. And then they do have landscaped yard along both 4th and 30th, and it's greater than our site plan review standards require. They are proposing landscaping in this location, and in this location they also have that nice ride station would be in this area, and we are making that a recommendation or a condition of approval for this specific variance. And we are adding some additional conditions pertaining to this variance with additional landscaping. We are also recommending that they not provide screening in this location. So on those event days, people are able to flow freely into and out of that site from the street if there are large events that either close the street or that they close the parking lot to vehicles and they use it for such an event. And the applicant can speak more to that. And I know the neighborhood representatives are also here, and so hopefully they can provide more information about what they envision the space being used as. So for those reasons, we are recommending approval. And specifically on conditions, and I would like to just say on the window requirement, we are asking that, or adding a condition that to mitigate the reduced window area along University, that they provide that outdoor deck and then that lighted artwork that's along the building elevation, which was in this location. This is artwork that they have at the store. The Fresh Time grocery store has this artwork at their store in Bloomington, and so we are recommending that they add that there to provide that visual interest along the wall. And then specifically for the parking lot, that we are saying that the parking lot be screened from 4th and from 30th, except for that area what they're calling the backyard, that area be provided and that they support the soils with, or that they reinforce the grass, to withstand heavy traffic use, and that they also provide that nice ride station. And then as far as conditions of approval for the site plan review, we do have a few that I could run through, or I could just stand and see if there's any questions, or if you'd like me to go through them, I can do that.
I think we can probably see if there are any questions or if anyone wants a little more information on those. Commissioners, Commissioner Slack.
I have 2 questions for the site plan. The first one, on this page, the 2 trees that are just north of the driveway, looks like they're planted in a boulevard condition. The boulevard doesn't look like it's very wide. If the sidewalk's only 5 feet, that boulevard looks like it's 2 feet, 3 feet maybe. I'm just wondering, can you clarify that? And then also, in that case, I'm just wondering if there needs to be a wider boulevard and the sidewalk can be shifted over onto private property and subsequently the bike station area being shifted as well. Second question is on the elevation as it relates to University Avenue. I've always struggled with this grocery deck seating area and what that actually looks like from the street side. I mean, it literally looks like it's a deck. So it's raised, it's got posts. I don't think we've talked a lot about materials, what that looks like, but in my sense, walking along the street and there's a raised deck that, it's going to gather trash. It's, it's unsightly. They tend to be unsightly areas. And if we can just maybe have a quick discussion about that.
And I will pull my file to look at the civil plans. I didn't make a copy for my presentation, but I will pull the file and get to the depth of that. Oops, excuse me, I cannot see that. Get you the depth of that sidewalk or the width of that sidewalk. I did actually have that same concern when I was reviewing the project. Is what does that underside of that deck look like? Is there is it finished? Is it covered? Is it enclosed? And I realized now that I didn't. I had the thought, but I didn't finish it in the staff report. So I think it would be a question that we could ask the applicant, or we could address that through adding a condition to site plan about having that be a finished treatment on the bottom of that deck, so you don't just see posts and footings and then whatever type of ground cover material they would put under there. But not lattice, something that's modern and that goes with the design of the building, but something that doesn't allow trash to collect and other things to collect underneath there. I think that would be an excellent condition to add. And I apologize. This is, I think, the best that I can, the best rendering that I can get that shows that deck in that location.
I mean, it potentially could have sort of this industrial aesthetic that somewhat ties to the history of the area, but I still believe it's a pretty tight right of way through there. And not to say that a solid structure would be better, but I feel that being able to see underneath there and depending on the depth of that, it could gather trash. It could be an aesthetically unpleasing area.
Okay.
Okay, commissioners, are there any other questions of staff? Commissioner Magrino.
I was wondering, I see on here we have the small area plans, and there's a few of them listed. Can you tell me where the Green Fourth plan is at? Is that not adopted policy yet, or is that just a sort of a?
It's not a plan. As I understand it, the design has been approved by the city council, but it wouldn't necessarily be a document that It's not like a small area plan. It's more of a design roadway enhancement.
More of a public works thing than a planning thing.
Correct.
Okay.
But when we had met at committee of the whole, I think the 75% level drawings had been approved by TMPW and ultimately then City Council in that same cycle.
Thanks.
Okay, are there any further questions of staff? Commissioner Slot.
I guess as it relates to the Green Fourth plan, do you know contextually what this area will be doing from the standpoint of stormwater water management, at least the area on the private property side? Or is that a specific question for the applicant as well?
Underneath the yard, specifically, this area in this area is that is where all of their underground stormwater infiltration chambers will be located.
For the development side or for the public street side?
As I understand it, for the whole system, no, that's for the development side, excuse me. And then there are the pipes that will flow from, and if I don't get this right, I apologize. So it's these development parcels that are involved in that, sorry. So this is the site. These are the development parcels that are involved in that district stormwater system. In this area of the Cornerstone property, this will be subdivided. This is going to be a rainwater infiltration area. Everything from these properties is going to flow to this location and then connect to an interceptor in the U of M Transitway and then back into the city system. So this site will drain into the 2929 University site and then cut over this way. So they have their underground chambers here, and then the pipes from this location will come down that right-of-way, connect into it, and then come across 4th Street, and then come across into the pipes that will drain back into the city system once it crosses the U and comes back.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions of staff? If there are none, at this time I'll open the public hearing on this item. I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first. And please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and if there's anything you'd like to add to Hillary's presentation, that would be good. Also, if you wouldn't mind addressing that issue of the treatment of the deck area.
Oh, certainly. Rick Filler, president of the Harlem Irving Companies. We're the developer on the project. And first of all, I'd like to thank Hillary and the staff for all the time we've spent over the last year, and also the neighborhood groups and the landowners that have been very instrumental in getting us here. We're proud of what we've accomplished in the working with the Green Initiative on 4th Street, the district stormwater, even adding compost chutes throughout our project. So these are things that we feel that we're bringing into this new innovation district, and very pleased with where we're at today. As it relates to the parking lot and everything Hillary was talking about, I think we're doing some things that are really innovative there also. We do have a grocery store that is sorely needed in this area, and how we're treating that corner of 4th Street and that parking lot and how they come together, I think Tusha Montgomery did a phenomenal job of basically walkable green pavers. So it's basically at that certain part where you'd usually just run into a screen or something of that parking lot, it's actually melding into almost like a plaza. And then we've given up all of our street parking in that area also, if you notice. And we've added even more green depth to 4th Street. So I think it's a really, it was a challenge to try to fit within all the rules and everything there. But I think there's some really neat, innovative things that are going to happen here and create a really nice public area space and allowing the grocery store to act like a grocery store is supposed to act. As it relates to the decking on University Avenue, I agree. We can work with staff and get that covered up. What's important about that whole aspect of it too, that sidewalk is sloping. We want to activate University Street. So the grocery store has re-planned their insides, that the front of the store, because we wanted them to activate that door onto University Avenue. They've put a point of sale there, which is important, and they've brought their deli section up to that area. So the idea is that people would go in there, buy their deli, walk out that front door, and then that will all be seating area. So it's just not a static deck along there. It's actually designed to have furniture, people eating and doing that, but to cover the bottom up would be fine.
All right. Are there any questions of the applicant? If there are none, we can move on to Commissioner Slack.
Well, first off, I want to thank you and your team, because I think we saw this at least twice at Committee of the Whole. Yes. And I do think that at least the architecture aspects of the design evolved, because I do know that we had some struggles with massing and some of those things early on. So I appreciate that, and I think that this has an opportunity to be a really great project. For me personally, I still struggle a little bit with that variance for the PO overlay district, and as it relates to that parking. I just feel like adding that much frontage of parking onto what's going to be sort of this signature green infrastructure street is a mistake. So I still struggle with that a little bit, but I do appreciate the fact that it is part of a larger system and that it's all interconnected, and that that green area is necessary to help facilitate that conversation. Maybe there's an opportunity to enhance the design a little bit of that green area. Maybe what I'm struggling with is the fact that it is so permeable, and I understand that there could be events on 4th Street that could spill into your parking lot. But there's some landscaped areas adjacent to sort of the north entry. Maybe that needs to be more solid to help break up the overall length of that parking area. Maybe that will help. Maybe there just needs to be some more trees on that edge to help break up that edge a little bit, because it is still a lot of parking, and the cross section is still, depending on what happens long term across the street. It's 4th Street, and then it's some boulevard area, but then it's a parking lot that's 200 some feet deep till you get to a building. And if the building was oriented a little bit differently on the side street, north south, it might work a little bit better. But those are just some of my general thoughts. But I do want to thank you for working with this group and making the changes that you have made.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the applicant? If there are none, we can move on to some other speakers. I realize there are several of you here, so we can start over in this side of the room. And whoever would like to go first, you can come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Who would like to go first? Go ahead. And please state your name and address.
My name is John Kerry. I live at 169 Malcolm Avenue Southeast. I have been a resident of Prospect Park for 43 years, and I have been a part of PERIA and now Prospect Park Association as a board member on and off for at least 20 of those 40-some years. I've also been a member of the Southeast Minneapolis Industrial Committee that looked at this area back in the 80s and 90s. And as a part of that vision, we had thought about housing being on the avenue and jobs back inside. This project is consistent with that general overview of an objective. I have also been a part of the Master Planning and Vision Committee, which came up with the basic framework for the redevelopment and enhancement of this area. And again, I think this project is in keeping with the objectives and vision that we laid out. I am currently a member of the Zoning Committee and have reviewed this and worked with the developer over the last years. And I think the evolution of this project has been very positive. And we see that in the project before you. There are several things that I would like to say. First off, I think I'd like to support the staff recommendations for the project. But there are some things that I think that are important. One is that the neighborhood has wanted a grocery store for decades. And in order to get that grocery store, we need rooftops. In order to get rooftops, we need density. This project does both of those things, and I think does it quite well. Another thing that we really wanted was to really help build on the asset of the Green Line. We, as a neighborhood, took on the idea of let's be in favor of something, and rather than being against projects coming in, let's say what we would like to see and work with developers, and I think this project is emblematic of that. The other thing that we really stressed is access to the university. University Avenue today is not a pedestrian-friendly environment, and with the addition of Green Fourth, we will have a pedestrian, bike, and car access that will go from the neighborhood to the university and really provide a green experience, pedestrian-friendly, that we can then really enjoy, and it can really help foster the development north of University Avenue. Those are the main points I wanted to make, and there are others who will make other points.
All right. Thank you. Next speaker, who would like to go next? Yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
My name is Florence Whitman. I've lived at 76 Clarence Avenue Southeast since 1963. I've been involved with PERIA since about 1970, and now I'm involved with PPA. I have been vice president of PERIA. I've been president 3 separate times. One of the terms I think was 10 years. I've been chair of the zoning committee, and now I'm on the zoning committee. I have dealt with many, many developers. And I must say that there are only 2 that I really have any respect for. And one of them is the Barnharts. They have always been honest with us. We have worked with them. They have come all the time. They talked about this development for years. And I know it was very important to them that they pick a developer who would work with the neighborhood. There have been many, many meetings, and I think that Dave and Jeff Barnhart, plus the people on the committee, could have PhDs in this project. That's how long they have worked on it. They've always been extremely honest with us, and I appreciate that. They haven't done one thing and then turned around and done something else and not told us. And it's been fine to work with them. We're delighted to have the grocery store. And I support the planner's report. I think it was an excellent report. And I also support what they're doing. And that is, I've probably lived here amongst I'm looking around. I think amongst my neighbors here, I've probably lived there the longest. And I've certainly been involved with Kerry and the Neighborhood Association for a long time. So I just think that I have a lot of background to speak of this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Tamara Johnson. I am a relative newcomer to Prospect Park, only having lived in the park for about 10 years now. I'm at 152 Southeast Bedford Street. And I am on the PPA board. I am the treasurer, and I'm also the chairperson of the Master Plan Committee. The Master Plan Committee started about 8.5 years ago. And John alluded to it. We wanted to be able to go out and do outreach to people that we thought were doing really great projects and bring them to us so that we didn't end up with University Avenue being a bunch of fast food restaurants and, you know, kinds of development that we really didn't want to see take off with the Green Line going in. I just want to emphasize a couple of things. One thing is that the Master Plan Committee has worked with not only just the PPA board members, but has done outreach to the community many, many times and had hundreds of people. I can think of 5 or 6 outreaches we had in different time periods where we would invite everyone in the neighborhood to come and see what kinds of things we were envisioning for north of University, which a main component of that was high density. We wanted high density. We wanted taller buildings on the north side of University so that then we could keep the sort of lower, smaller historical district on the south side of University. We've gotten consensus from the community that they know that this is what we were pushing for, and they were in agreement with it. The other thing I want to mention is that I'm very excited to have the grocery store and also to have a lot more people and action out on University Avenue. I mean, I see this as this project and the density on the north side of University as being something that really gets people moving out on the street and gets people seeing each other and more of a community instead of just a big concrete street that's out there. So this isn't the only kind of thing that we want to have north of University. We want to have more density, and we support this project. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Chairman Brown and members of the committee. My name is Richard Gilley. I live in Prospect Park, and I'm a member of the board as well, and I've been a member of the Master Planning and Zoning Committee for some time. I just wanted to add what John Kerry and Tamara Johnson said, in that 10 years ago when the neighborhood began reimagining this area, we envisioned this really rich mix of places to live, work, learn, do business, and so on. The neighborhood endorsed that vision, and then we went on this proactive program to promote that. And over time, we've turned our efforts, our neighborhood efforts, into a much larger effort with the University District, University Avenue District, and then the Prospect North Partnership. But overlaying this idea of several thousand units of new housing north of University Avenue and several 100,000 square feet of places of offices and specialty offices and studios and growing of the science park that the wall companies have been promoting for years. Overlaying all of that was this idea, this larger idea of district systems, the district public realm, district energy, district stormwater management. And we felt it was through those district systems that the real potential of this area would be unlocked. So the particular value of this project, over and above being the kind of having the grocery store and bringing a large number of units, of high quality units to the site, a well-designed building, is what it does for these district systems. It really sets the mark, and by buying into the concept for district energy and buying into the concept for district stormwater management, they really are laying down the beginning modules of these systems. And had the project not been of this scale and of this quality of design, it wouldn't have carried with it all those extras that we believe this project does at this time. So we very much support this project. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Wicks. I'm a resident of the Prospect Park neighborhood since 1997, and I've been a board member of Peria for about a decade. I'm the chairperson of the Prospect Park Association Zoning and Project Review Committee, and we've worked with the developer and the property owners for nearly 2 years on this project. And there's been a great sense of cooperation between our organization and the development group. We formed a subcommittee and met with them on a very regular basis to go over many of the details of the project. They were exceedingly cooperative. They didn't always like some of the things that we asked for, but in the end, they were very generous in showing their interest in providing us a good, satisfactory solution. And as others have said, the project has many features that we've been looking for and talking about in the neighborhood for many years, including a higher density tower, as well as lower rise residential. And the grocery store has been mentioned, but there will be additional commercial that this area hasn't had and actually is losing at this time. And we hope for replacement of some of the commercial that has been there, as well as the parking. We support the increased height and allowable gross floor area, as well as the exterior landscaping improvements surrounding the building and the building massing as a whole. We went so far as to develop a memorandum of understanding between the neighborhood and the developer, which has been signed, and as well as an understanding of the University District Alliance design principles that you might be familiar with, that we've worked with on other developers, and this has been approved. And we will be utilizing this memorandum to keep track of the project in the future. With that, I request that you please support the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Anyone else? Yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Trina Porty. I'm recently moved back to the cities. And I'm also a member of the Prospect Park Zoning and Planning Review Committee. I'm not against this building. I'm thrilled that there's a grocery store plan to be there. But there's nothing in the zoning code, the comprehensive plan, or the University Design District principles that support the density, the height, or the scale of the proposed plans. Please consider. There have been people who objected to the height, not the project, just the height of 2929 at Prospect Park Neighborhood Board meetings for the past 3 months. And it's never been addressed by the developers or in consideration of that. Many commercial and multi-unit residential buildings in this area already have chronic vacancy problems. Almost every building for blocks has for lease signs on it, and I live at 2900 across the street, and we have had units that have been empty for several years that are still empty. That all the units at 2900 University facing 29 would lose their only view of daylight if the building is that high. That the Prospect Park neighborhood already has weekly incidents of assaults, robberies, property crimes, and not enough on-street parking, particularly when there's events at the stadium. All of these problems could become much worse because 2929 is asking for variances to build 15 stories, and I don't know why the height variance is not included on today's agenda. It should be. 41,000 commercial square feet, and rental apartments totaling 547 beds, meaning a possibility of 1,000 people added to that one block. These plans violate the city statutes, and the reasons why are repeated several times in the zoning code and the comprehensive plan, including the beginning of the zoning code where it says, this zoning ordinance is adopted for the following purposes: to protect the character and stability of residential, commercial, and industrial areas within the city, and to promote the orderly and beneficial development of those areas, to provide adequate light, air, and privacy, to prevent the overcrowding of land and the undue concentration of population, to provide the safe and efficient circulation of all modes of transportation with particular regard to the avoidance of congestion. I understand that some people's dreams for Prospect Park include high-density housing. But in the past 5 years, the population of Minneapolis has risen by only 5,000 people. Adding 1,000 of them to one block is clearly too dense. Minneapolis already has big buildings that have been built